Negotiating. Active listening and communication skills for negotiations. Written by Tom Hendricks. Narrated by Doug Green. Chapter 1. What is negotiating? Negotiating is a method by which people settle differences. It is a procedure by which compromise or a contract is reached while staying away from arguing and dispute. In any argument, people understandably aim to achieve the best possible solution for their position, or maybe an organization they represent. However, the principles of fairness, seeking mutual benefit, and maintaining a relationship are the keys to an effective result. Specific forms of negotiation are used in many circumstances: international affairs, the legal system, federal government, commercial disputes, or domestic relationships, as examples. Nevertheless, general negotiation skills can be learned and used in a large range of activities. Negotiation abilities can be a big advantage in resolving any differences which develop between you and others. Phases of negotiation. In order to achieve a preferable result, it may be helpful to follow an organized technique to negotiation. For instance, in a work circumstance, a meeting could really need to be arranged in which all parties that are involved can come together. The process of negotiation typically involves the following phases: preparation, conversation, explanation of objectives, negotiate everything towards a win-win solution, agreement, implementation of a course of action. 1. Preparation. Right before a negotiation occurs, a choice needs to be made concerning when and where a conference will take place to talk about the issue and who will go to it. Setting a limited time scale can also be useful to stop the disagreement from continuing. This phase includes guaranteeing all the essential facts of the situation are known so as to clarify your own position. In the work example I previously mentioned, this would include knowing the rules of your organization, to whom help is offered, when help is not felt proper, and the grounds for such refusals. Your organization might well have policies to which you can refer in preparation for the negotiation. Having a preparation before discussing the dispute will help to keep from further conflict and unnecessarily wasting time at the time of the meeting. 2. Conversation. Throughout this stage, people or members of each side advance the case as they see it, that is, their understanding of the circumstance. Important skills during this stage include questioning, listening, and clarifying. Sometimes it is handy to take notes at the time of the discussion stage to record all points advanced in case there's need for more information. It's incredibly essential to listen because when difference takes place, it is simple to make the error of saying way too much and listening insufficient. Each side should have an equal opportunity to prove their case. 3. Explaining your objectives. From the discussion, the objectives, interests, and perspectives of both sides of the dispute need to be clarified. It is valuable to note these factors in order of priority. Through this clarification, it is usually possible to identify or establish some common ground. Information is an important part of the negotiation process. Without it, misconceptions are very likely to occur, which might cause problems and barriers to reaching a valuable result. 4. Negotiate towards a win-win outcome. This stage focuses on what's described as a win-win result, where both sides feel they have acquired something positive through the process of negotiation, and both sides feel their point of view has been taken into account. A win-win result is typically the best outcome. While this could not always be possible through negotiation, it must be the ultimate goal. Suggestions of alternative strategies and compromises need to be considered at this moment. Compromises are often positive alternatives which can usually attain greater benefit for all concerned compared to holding to the original positions. 5. Agreement. Agreement can be accomplished once understanding of both sides' perspectives and interests have been considered. It is important for everyone included to keep an open mind to achieve an acceptable resolution. any contract needs to be made flawlessly clear so that both sides know what has been determined. 6. Carrying out a strategy. From the arrangement, a course of action has to be carried out to carry through the decision. Failure to agree. If the process of negotiation breaks down and arrangement can't be reached, then rescheduling an additional meeting is required. This avoids all parties being involved in heated conversation or argument, which not only loses time, but can also damage future relationships. At the subsequent meeting, the phases of negotiation should be repeated. Any new ideas or interests should be considered and the circumstance looked at afresh. At this stage, it may also be useful to look at other alternative solutions and/or bring in another individual to moderate. Informal negotiation. There are times when there is a need to work out more informally. At such times, when a difference of opinion emerges, it might not be possible or proper to go through the stages set out above in an official manner. Nevertheless, recalling the bottom lines in the stages of formal negotiation could be really helpful in a range of informal circumstances. In any negotiation, the following 3 components are essential and likely to affect the supreme result of the negotiation. Attitudes. Knowledge. Interpersonal abilities. Attitudes. All negotiation is highly affected by underlying attitudes to the process itself. For instance, attitudes to the issues and characters involved in the particular case, or attitudes linked to personal needs for recognition. Always understand that negotiation isn't an arena for the realization of individual accomplishments. There can be resentment of the need to work out by those in authority. Certain functions of negotiation may influence an individual's behavior. For instance, some people may end up being defensive. Knowledge. The more knowledge you have of the issues in question, the greater your involvement in the process of negotiation. Simply put, good preparation is important. Do your homework and collect as much information about the issues as you can. Additionally, the way issues are worked out should be comprehended, as negotiating will need different techniques in different circumstances. Interpersonal skills. Good interpersonal abilities are important for efficient settlements, both in official situations and in less official or one-to-one settlements. These skills include efficient verbal communication, listening. Decreasing misinterpretations is a key part of reliable negotiation. Rapport building, issue solving, decision-making, assertiveness, handling tight spots. Chapter 2. Active Listening. Active listening is an ability that can be acquired and developed with practice. Nonetheless, active listening can be hard to master and will, because of that, take time and patience to develop. Active listening means, as its name suggests, actively listening. That is, totally concentrating on what is being said, rather than just passively hearing the message of the speaker. Active listening involves listening with all senses. As well as giving full attention to the speaker, it is essential that the active listener is also seen to be listening. Otherwise, the speaker might conclude that what they're talking about is boring to the listener. Interest can be conveyed to the speaker by utilizing both verbal and nonverbal messages such as preserving eye contact, nodding your head and smiling, concurring by saying yes or simply mm-hmm, to encourage them to continue. By supplying this feedback, the person speaking will typically feel more at ease and thus communicate more easily, openly, and truthfully. Listening is the most fundamental component of interpersonal communication skills. Listening is not something that just happens. That is hearing. Listening is an active process in which a conscious choice is made to listen to and comprehend the messages of the speaker. Listeners should remain neutral and non-judgmental. This means trying not to take sides or form opinions, especially early in the discussion. Active listening is also about patience. Stops briefly and brief periods of silence should be accepted. Listeners should not be tempted to jump in with questions or comments each time there are several seconds of silence. Active listening involves giving the other person time to explore their thoughts and feelings. They should therefore be given appropriate time for that. Active listening not only means focusing totally on the speaker, but also actively demonstrating verbal and nonverbal signs of listening. Usually, speakers want listeners to demonstrate active listening by responding properly to what they are saying. Proper reactions to listening can be both verbal and nonverbal, examples of which are listed below. Signs of active listening. Nonverbal signs of mindful or active listening. This is a generic list of nonverbal signs of listening. In other words, people who are listening are more likely to display at the very least some of these signs. Nevertheless, these signs could not be appropriate in all circumstances and across all cultures. Smile. Small smiles can be used to show that the listener is taking note of what is being said, or as a way of concurring or being more than happy about the messages being gotten. Combined with nods of the head, smiles can be powerful in affirming that messages are being listened to and understood. Eye contact. It is normal and generally motivating for the listener to look at the speaker. Eye contact can nevertheless be daunting, specifically for more shy speakers. Gauge how much eye contact is proper for any given circumstance. Integrate eye contact with smiles and other nonverbal messages to encourage the speaker. Posture. Posture can tell a lot about the sender and receiver in interpersonal interactions. The mindful listener tends to lean slightly forward or sideways while sitting. Other signs of active listening could include a small slant of the head or resting the head on one hand. Mirroring. Automatic reflection or mirroring of any facial expressions used by the speaker can be a sign of mindful listening. Those reflective expressions can help to show compassion and empathy in more emotional situations. Attempting to knowingly simulate facial expressions, for example, not automatic reflection of expressions, can be a sign of inattention. Distraction. The active listener won't be distracted and thus will avoid fidgeting, looking at a clock or watch, doodling, having fun with their hair, or choosing their fingernails. Verbal signs of attentive or active listening. Positive reinforcement. Although a strong signal of attentiveness, caution must be used when using positive verbal reinforcement. Although some positive words of encouragement might be useful to the speaker, the listener should use them moderately so as not to sidetrack from what's being said or place unnecessary emphasis on parts of the message. Casual and regular use of words and phrases such as excellent, yes, or indeed can become irritating to the speaker. It's usually better to elaborate and clarify why you are concurring with a certain point. Remembering. The human mind is infamously bad at remembering details, particularly for any length of time. Nevertheless, remembering several bottom lines, or even the name of the speaker, can help to strengthen that the messages sent have been gotten and comprehended. That is, listening has achieved success. Keeping in mind specifics, ideas, and ideas from former conversations proves that attention was kept and is likely to encourage the speaker to continue. Throughout longer exchanges, it could be proper to make very quick notes to serve as a memory jog when questioning or clarifying later. Questioning. The listener can show that they have been focusing by asking relevant questions and/or making declarations that build or help to clarify what the speaker has said. By asking relevant questions, the listener also helps to enhance that they have an interest in what the speaker has been saying. Reflection. Reflecting is closely repeating or paraphrasing what the speaker has said so as to show comprehension. Reflection is a powerful skill that can strengthen the message of the speaker and show understanding. Information. Clarifying includes asking questions of the speaker to ensure that the correct message has been gotten. Clarification normally includes the application of open questions, which enables the speaker to go deeper into certain points as needed. Summing up. Repeating a summary of what has been said back to the speaker is a technique used by the listener to repeat what has been said in their own words. Summarizing includes taking the bottom lines of the received message and reiterating them in a logical and clear way, giving the speaker a chance to correct if needed. Chapter 3. Communicating in Difficult Situations. Many people want to stay away from dispute and potentially stressful situations. This is human nature. People usually find it easier to stay away from interacting something that they think is going to be controversial or bad, postponing the communication and letting the circumstance fester. A manager could hold back telling a staff member that the requirement of work is unsatisfactory. You may delay having that difficult conversation with your partner, particularly if it concerns some sort of wrongdoing, monetary or emotional concerns. A child might put off telling their parents or caretakers that they're fighting with classes at school. Most people can think of times when they have put off having that challenging discussion. The majority of people will also recognize that putting off the challenging conversation eases short-term anxiety. Nonetheless, constantly delaying difficult communication situations often leads to feelings of frustration, guilt, irritation with oneself, anger, a decrease in self-confidence, and, ultimately, more stress and anxiety. By following some easy standards and by using some well-tuned communication abilities, interacting in difficult situations ends up being simpler. There are two unique kinds of challenging discussion: prepared and unplanned. Planned discussions occur when the subject has been given thought. They're prepared as the time, place, and other scenarios have been organized or are chosen for a real reason. Planned hard conversations could include asking an employer for a pay rise or perhaps telling your parents or caregivers that you are leaving home to live elsewhere. Though these circumstances are by their nature hard, they are controlled, and as long as time has been brought to prepare and think properly about how others may respond, they can typically wind up being easier than thought of. Unplanned, challenging conversations happen on the spur of the moment. These are typically fueled by anger, which can, in extreme cases, lead to aggressiveness. Often, after an unplanned, challenging conversation, we feel a surge of feeling, regret or shame if things didn't go too well, or possibly a boost to self-confidence and self-confidence if they did. After such encounters, it is wise to show and learn a lot from our experiences, looking for positives and ways of enhancing future, unplanned, challenging discussions. Certain jobs and roles need tough communication to be managed expertly, with empathy, tact, discretion, and clarity. Some examples are: political leaders typically need to communicate bad news, for example, failures in their departments, scandals, not meeting targets, and so on. As politicians are in the general public eye, they might be judged by how well they communicate bad news. They will worry about their electorate and the consequences for their self-image, their political party, and their country. It isn't unusual for political leaders to use spin medical professionals and public relation masters who can advise, ease personal blame, and find positives in possibly bad news. Another technique sometimes used by political leaders is to coincide the release of bad news with some other unassociated big newspaper article, with the hope that media and public attention will be focused in other places. Doctors and other healthcare professionals might really need to communicate bad or unforeseen news to clients and relations of clients, for instance, diagnosis and prognosis. Such experts will have gotten training and will have operated in practice situations to help them to deliver such news successfully and sensitively. Authorities and other police officers might need to communicate bad news to victims of criminal offense or their family and friends. Such experts will have gotten at least standard training in providing bad news. Supervisors in organizations may really need to communicate hard information on some levels to staff who are underperforming or if redundancies are needed. Managers could also really need to report bad news upwards to directors or board members. Maybe profits are down or some arm of the company is failing. Your job. Whatever your kind of work, there will be times when you'll need to be able to communicate tough info efficiently to others. That is an important employability skill, something that many employers will search for. You might be asked to give examples in a job interview or at the time of some sort of appraisal or professional development program. Emotion and change. There are two primary aspects that make communication seem challenging: emotion and change. Emotion. People tend to look at feelings as being positive or negative. Happiness is positive, and because of that, sadness must be negative. Calmness is positive, while tension and anxiety are negative. Feelings are, however, a natural reaction to situations that we find ourselves in, and the only time that we really need to be concerned is when we regularly feel emotions inappropriate to our existing situation. Feelings are thus not positive or negative, but proper or improper. When faced with unexpected news, we might find ourselves being upset, annoyed, angry, or perhaps extremely happy and ecstatic. It is valuable to recognize how we respond to things emotionally and to think of different ways in which emotions can be controlled if necessary. Similarly, if we really need to communicate information which may have an emotional effect on another person, it is practical to anticipate what that influence might be and to customize what we say or write accordingly. Change. Usually, tough discussions are about some sort of change. For example, changes in your job or ways of doing things, changes in financial resources or health, changes in a relationship. It is essential to remember that change is inescapable. Various people deal with change in different ways. Some react extremely positively to a significant change in circumstances, while others may only have the ability to see issues and trouble in the beginning. If possible, it is beneficial to think of the positive side of the change and the potential chances that it might bring. It is better for a person's wellness if they are able to embrace change as positively as possible, hence helping to decrease stress and anxiety. Dealing with difficult conversations. There has to be a balance between interacting something challenging and being as sensitive as possible to those concerned. The skill set required to do this could appear rather contradictory, as you might really need to be both firm and gentle in your technique. Recommended abilities include info event. Make sure you have your facts straight before you start. Know what you are going to say and why you're going to say it. You should try to prepare for any questions or issues others might have and think carefully about how you are going to answer questions. Being assertive. Once you are sure that something needs to be communicated, then do so in an assertive way. Do not find yourself backing down or changing your mind mid-conversation unless naturally there is excellent reason to do so. Being empathic. Put yourself in the other person's shoes and think about how they will feel about what you are telling them. How would you feel if the roles were reversed? Give others time to ask questions and make comments. Being prepared to negotiate. Usually a tight spot requires a specific amount of negotiation. Be prepared for this. When you are negotiating, go for a win-win result. That is, some way in which all parties can benefit. Using appropriate verbal and nonverbal language. Speak plainly, keeping away from any jargon that other parties could not understand. Give eye contact and try to sit or stand in a relaxed way. Do not use argumentative language or nonverbal communication. Listen. When we are stressed out, we tend to listen less well, so you should try to relax and listen thoroughly to the views, opinions, and emotions of the other person or people. Use explanation and reflection techniques to offer feedback and show that you were listening. Staying calm and focused. Communication ends up being easier when we are calm. take some deep breaths and try to maintain an air of peace. Others are more likely to stay calm if you do. Keep concentrated on what you want to say. Don't deviate or get distracted from the reason that you are communicating. Chapter 4. Assertiveness. Being assertive can help us feel good about ourselves, improving self-confidence and personal confidence. Sometimes the way we react and respond to others can make us feel insufficient, guilty, or regretful. Those might be signs of passive behavior. We might also feel mad and critical of others during discussions. This may signify more aggressive behavior. When practicing these assertiveness strategies, it is very important to remember what assertiveness is and its significance in the communication process. Being assertive is not the exact same as being aggressive. On the contrary, assertiveness indicates standing up for what you believe. Assertiveness is expressing your thoughts, emotions, beliefs, and viewpoints in a truthful and appropriate way. As assertiveness needs to be motivated in others, it is also crucial to recall that we should always respect the thoughts, feelings, viewpoints, and beliefs of others. Assertiveness enables individuals to assert their personal rights without undermining the rights of others. Assertiveness is considered a balanced response, being neither passive nor aggressive, with self-confidence playing a fundamental part. An assertive individual responds as an equivalent to others and aims to be open in expressing their wishes, thoughts, and emotions. General techniques of assertiveness. 2 crucial methods that can assist assertiveness are referred to as fogging and the stuck record technique. Fogging. Fogging is a useful method if people are behaving in a manipulative or aggressive way. Rather than arguing back, fogging aims to give a minimal calm response using terms that are soothing but not defensive, while at the same time not agreeing to meet demands. Fogging involves concurring with any truth that might be contained within declarations, even if they are critical. By not reacting in the anticipated way, simply put by being defensive or argumentative, the other person will stop conflict, as the wanted effect isn't being accomplished. When the environment is less heated, it will be possible to talk about the problems more reasonably. Fogging is so termed because the individual imitates a wall of fog into which arguments are thrown but not returned. Example circumstance. What time do you call this? You're almost a half hour late. I'm fed up with you letting me down all of the time. Fogging reaction. Yeah, I am later than I wish to be, and I can see this has frustrated you. Annoyed? Naturally I am annoyed. I've been waiting on ages. You truly should try to think about other individuals a bit more. Fogging reaction. Yeah, I was concerned that you would be left waiting practically half an hour. Well, why were you late? The stuck record strategy. The stuck record technique employs the key assertive ability of calm determination. It includes repeating what you want time and time again without raising the tone of your voice, blowing up, irritated, or associated with side issues. Example situation. Imagine that you're returning something that's faulty to a shop. The conversation might go as follows. I bought these shoes last week and the heels have fallen off. I would like a refund, please. It looks like they've been worn a lot, and these shoes were only created for occasional wear. Stuck record technique reaction? I have only had them a week and they're defective. I would like a refund, please. You cannot expect me to give you your cash back after you have used them out. Stuck record strategy response. The heels have fallen off after only a week and I would like a refund, please. And so on. Continually repeating a request will ensure the conversation doesn't become sidetracked and associated with unimportant argument. The essential thing is to remain calm, be very clear in what you want, stick to the point and not forfeit. Accept a compromise only if you are happy with the result. Positive inquiry. Positive query is a simple strategy for managing positive comments such as praise and compliments. People often struggle with reacting to applause and compliments, especially those with lower self-confidence, as they may feel inadequate or that the positive remarks aren't justified. It is essential to give positive feedback to others when appropriate, but also to react appropriately to positive feedback that you get. Positive inquiry is used to find out more details about the compliment or appreciation given and agree with it. Example situation. Sender: You made an exceptional meal tonight. It was tasty. Receiver: Thanks. Yeah, it was good. What did you like about it in particular? This is different from a passive response that might have been, It was no effort, or It was just a basic recipe. Negative inquiry. The opposite of positive query is negative inquiry. Unfavorable inquiry is a way to respond to more negative exchanges, like getting criticism. Handling criticism can be hard. Remember that any criticism received is just somebody's viewpoint. Negative inquiry is used to learn more about critical comments and is a pretty good option to more aggressive or mad reactions to criticism. Example circumstance. Sender: That meal was practically inedible. I can't remember the last time I ate something so horrible. Receiver: It wasn't the best. Precisely what didn't you like about it? This differs from an aggressive response that might have been, How dare you? I spent all afternoon preparing that meal. Or, well, that's the last time I cook a meal for you. Learn how to think about your responses and how you behave when you communicate with others. By utilizing techniques designed to make you more assertive, you will find that your communication and other social interactions are generally more positive. Chapter 5. More about negotiation skills. Next, I asked, how many of you feel like you might be proficient in negotiation and are sturdy at it, but you don't really love it and you feel like you could enhance? About a third of these successful business owners raised their hands. Finally, I asked, how many of you feel like you aren't strong or confident mediators? How many of you find yourselves avoiding negotiating, even if that means you'll face negative consequences because of it? Over 60% of the hands in the room went up for that. That floored me. Thinking about the business success that these people have had, I thought the numbers would be manipulated far more to the first two questions. I realized that we had a lot of work to do. I said, look, in a day and a half, we're not going to cover all of the different negotiating tactics that are out there. Rather, we're going to start off with the 10 most crucial negotiating methods and skills that you will need. Now I want to list the 5 most essential for you to start with. 1. Get clear on your working out goals. Now, you might think this is apparent, but the reality is that most people who go into a deal haven't thought of what they want to leave with. To get clear about your objectives, there are 3 crucial questions you should ask yourself. What's the best possible result? Let's say you're negotiating to sell a product, service, or company. What's the most you could realistically go after? Is it $50,000 for your service contract? Or maybe $22 million to sell your firm? What's your bottom line? This describes the least acceptable offer. If you're the seller, what's the lowest offer you'd want to accept? And if you are the purchaser, what's the most you'd want to pay? What's your plan B? Roger Fisher and William Ury, members of the Harvard Negotiation Project and the authors of Getting to Yes, call this your BATNA, your best alternative to a worked-out arrangement. What are you going to do if you do not reach an arrangement? Of course, you shouldn't broadcast your answers to questions A or B, but you need to know all of these things going in. Even if you are not completely sure of your answers, just having a sense of what they might be can help you. As you become clearer about each of these aspects, negotiating will end up being easier. As a result, you should become certain that as you deal with increasingly more important settlements, you spend more and more time pinning down the answers to these 3 questions. 2. Decide on your core negotiation strategy. The second significant idea we covered was the significance of entering into the negotiation with a core negotiation method. Lorraine, one of my business coaching clients at this retreat, brought up a particularly intriguing negotiation obstacle that she's dealing with. She owns the 6,000 square foot commercial structure that her company runs out of, and the acre of land that it's on. But the city wants to take out an 8-foot easement on the front of her property, which will ruin her car park. When I asked Lorraine what her method was, she said that she would tell the representative from the city planning department that this easement negatively and unjustly impacts the value of her property. But I pointed out that a city organizer may not be specifically concerned about the value of her property, so I asked Lorraine to give me more info about why it lowers the value of her property. It ended up that one of the reasons is that she has a lot of huge industrial trucks that are available in and out of her property with big equipment. If the city takes those 8 feet of property from her, the trucks will need to back into the street every time they want to get in and out. So I made a recommendation. If it were me, I would not go into the negotiation through the entrance of value and fairness. Rather, I would come in through the entrance of safety and liability. I'd say that it is not safe to have the trucks backing into the street, and that it produces a lot of liability for both me and the city. And that's what creating a core negotiation strategy is all about. Finding the doorway that you want to enter the negotiation through. That could be the entrance of safety and liability or of value, the entrance of competition or of future business. Again, if it's a small negotiation, for instance, if you're buying $1,200 worth of equipment, you're probably not going to put a lot of energy into collecting lots and lots of info. But even then, you might spend 5 minutes online seeing about rates elsewhere and what choices exist. Then you can come in through the doorway of competition. You could ask, who are your rivals? And why does not everyone buy from you? Just by asking questions like those, you can guarantee yourself a much better cost or better terms. And that's what this second step is all about, finding the technique that will move you closer to your best possible result. 3. Understand your negotiating signature. You have a signature in negotiations, a lot like you have one with documents. That signature is the regular manner in which you set about a negotiation. There are those who try to go in and beat the other individual up on the price. Other people are truly intimidated, reticent, and scared to request anything. Those kinds of people work out gently and typically wind up giving in. Others are very good at building trust, and yet the moment the conversation turns toward price and terms, all of that rapport disappears. They make a conspicuous switch from discussion mode into negotiation mode. Comprehending your default signature helps you know what you're dealing with. That is an especially critical step to growth as a negotiator because there's just one thing you can ensure when it comes to settlements. Whenever you work out, you'll be there. You can't ask yourself to leave the room when the settlements start. So, become familiar with your own character, style, and preferences. Figure out what sort of behavior you have defaulted towards in the past, how comfortable you were in your former settlements. 4. Build motivation. One of the most effective things you can do in a negotiation is extract why the other party wants to make a deal. You can do this by asking questions and building negotiating routes. For example, if you're purchasing services from an IT vendor, try saying something like, "Tell me about your IT services. I get email offers for IT services all the time. How are your services different from the services they're offering?" Asking questions about their competition and why they want to work with you, what's in it for them, builds your negotiating counterpart's inspiration. 5. Play the reluctant party. It's human nature that in any negotiation, one party will aspire and the other will hesitate. Now, that may not be true whenever, but it's probably true 80% of the time. And let me tell you, I hate gambling, but give me 80% odds, and I'll hit Vegas and play the tables all the time. You just have to throw down when you've got those odds. So assume that your negotiation will be kind of like most others. It will have an eager party and a reluctant one. And if you use these 3 strategies, you can be certain that you're the hesitant one. First and foremost, use your body language to communicate your unwillingness. Think of what excited parties look like. They're tense, and they lean forward with their feet under them like they could jump to their feet or launch into a sprint any time. In contrast, hesitant parties kick back from the table and keep the stress in their bodies low. By putting their feet in front of their bodies at 90-degree angles and by rounding their shoulders, they communicate that they're not too eager to negotiate. Also, consider how you can manipulate your voice to sound more hesitant. Whereas excited parties talk rapidly and at a higher volume and pitch, hesitant parties speak gradually and softly. Doing this also lowers the pitch of their voices, and this makes them appear all the more hesitant. Finally, remember that unwilling parties qualify their language. They say things like, "I do not know if we could do X," or "Would this work for you if we could do it?" They also ask a lot of questions and pose a lot of challenges. They never ever say, "Yeah, let's do it." They don't show excitement. Every little thing is certified and controlled. Just by taking on the role of the unwilling party, you can actually force your challenger to handle the role of the excited party. I can assure you that these are the 5 most essential abilities to begin learning today. Okay, there are about 100 others that I would follow up with. However, if you have only the time, inclination, and energy to learn a few strategies, these 5 strategies will give you the biggest return on your financial investments of time and attention. This has been Negotiating. Active Listening and Communication Skills for Negotiations. Written by Tom Hendricks. Narrated by Doug Green.